Hi guys, it's Adam Chow from Clay Art Center. I'm the program manager here, and we're celebrating the Global Day of Clay. So we're going to run through half-hour sessions with our 4 artists-in-residence, starting with Mike Cerv. Mike is coming from Kansas City. He has a BFA from KCAI, and he started this July. So, welcome, Mike.
Hello. So I'm going to be doing a little bit of how I finish up a mug, starting with the body and moving on to the base and foot, and then a handle. I'll just go ahead and start with the base. I just moved from a porcelain clay body, so I'm still getting used to this stoneware. But it seems that if I just wet down my joints and score them, that's enough of an effort to make sure that things don't crack. Alright, so I'm going to place my cup here and just sort of mark it so that the slip shows me where I need to scratch, so I'm not going in blind. And I'll just scratch it, wet it down.
Mike, do you want to talk about the transition from going to school to going into a residency?
Yeah, sure. So the transition is very weird. Going from a place where sort of help comes to you for the most part to a place where you have to seek out your help is kind of a weird transition. And then it's also a transition of having a lot more responsibility than you did in school. So for example, here I do a lot of work around the studio, like loading kilns, mixing glazes, making shelving units, stuff like that. I'm going to inject my answer to that for just a moment. I'm adding just a normal old slip. It's the same clay, wet down, to my cup body. All the way around. But the transition from school to residency, I think, is a really good one, because having that extra responsibility really kind of tests your time management and focus in studio. Alright. So now I'm just going to press this tube onto the slab, make sure that it's really well attached. So all of the clay that I'm using at the moment is leather hard. So prior to today, I made this body using 2 molds, call them ring molds. And what I did was I pressed little bits of clay, sort of like monkey bread, into this tall one, and then a slab into the little one, put them on the wheel, and smoothed out the insides, and then attached them once they were leather hard. Alright. So now I'm just going to smooth out this joint. I'm going to take away the extra slip with my finger. And smooth it with this tool. Not even really sure what it's called, but it's wonderful. They have them in art stores by painting supplies usually. Alright.
It's called a silicone brush.
Silicone brush, according to Adam. Alright. So now I'm just going to cut sort of a offset from the cup, just to get it away from the slab. the slab to the side, and then focus on finishing up this this bottom. So I'm using an X-Acto that, I'm not even sure it's an X-Acto brand, but a cutting tool that has a blade that extends and is breakable at each point, so you can have a new sharp tip. But I use it because I can expand it and retract it, and it's a little bit flexible. So what I can do is put the side of the blade on my cup so that I'm cutting right at the surface of the wall. When I'm doing this, I just have to be sure to not let the blade bend under, otherwise I'll have a weird beveled undercut in some sections of it. Alright, so now I'll just use my finger and sort of smooth out that cut edge so it's not super sharp, and then use the silicone brush to smooth out the inside all the way around. Alright, so now I have just a normal cup shape, but I'm going to add a foot and some slabs to this to give it a little bit of a lift. So this piece was made in a press mold, this one, and the press mold was made by casting a solid block of plaster, and then while it was still pretty wet, not even fully through the heat phase, I took it to the wheel, logged it down, and then trimmed it away, just like you would trim a normal foot. So to cast this piece, I'm going to dust it with just a little bit of cornstarch. All sorts of powders work for this. Pretty much anything that's non-soluble will work. And then I'll take just some fresh clay and I'll press it in. When you're pressing into molds like this, it's important to make sure that you get really into the corners. Otherwise you'll have weird rounded out bits. So what I like to do is roll a coil and put it inside of that deeper corner, and then just sort of coil it up from the inside. After that, I can just take a big lunk of clay, smush it in. Now when I'm doing this, I make sure to press very hard so that it compresses all the way into the mold. This type of making is called press molding. So similar to slip casting, but instead of using a liquid, you use a solid or a plastic clay. And the wonderful thing about it is it allows your casts to come out very quick. So I'm just taking a wooden stick and I'm running it along the top to get a flat surface. And then I would let this sit or blow dry it, and because I cornstarch it, it would come out in like 5 minutes. But I've already got one, so I don't need to do that. Doing a wonderful clay cooking show here. So now I'm going to arrange this foot in the middle as best I can, mark it, and then do the same thing I did with the slab. Just wet it down and score it. Very well. And do the same to the bottom of the cup. And then add slip. So I'm going to support it from the inside so that I don't make a weird hump in the middle on the inside of my cup, and then I will press it down, make sure that this foot gets really well attached. clear away the extra slip. So you can see that this foot has a little bit of the dust left over from when I pressed it into the mold, but since it's cornstarch, it won't matter. If you use something like Nefsai or other ceramic materials, sometimes those will leave a haze after you fire them, but cornstarch won't. Alright, so I have that, and now I need to make the little slabs that will go on this to finish off the bottom.
Mike, where do you get your inspiration from?
I get my inspiration from architecture mostly. Things like bridges, there's sort of grungier bits of architecture like brick buildings I really like. I can't look at other potters when I'm making work because I'll just end up making their work. There's too many really good potters out there. So I'm just marking the thickness of the foot and then going back and cutting a strip of leather hard slab at that thickness and making another. So to make sure that my joint is nice and square, I'm just using a metal square to make sure my cut is at 90 degrees. And I will mark the distance from the foot to the end of the slab, where that needs to be. So you'll notice that I'm holding down not only my straight edge, but also my slabs, because I don't want them to slide out from underneath the square and mess up my cut, because then it wouldn't be a square cut. Instead of scoring and slipping these all individually, I would do it all at once. And I'm actually forgetting something first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to join them all to a stack on their sides. I'm going to mark along the edge. And then I'm just going to cut from mark to mark on each of these little wedges. So I'm beveling these guys. I'm cutting the corners off to give my cup a little bit of a lift at the bottom. Any other questions?
Whoever's live on Facebook can ask questions to Mike and we'll read them aloud.
now instead of slipping and scoring them all individually, what I'll do is just stack them up, wet them all down, and score them all at once. Scoring really little things like this is kind of a pain, so if you can make it into a bigger block, it makes it a lot easier. Alright, so then I'll score the location that these are going to sit on my cup. Slip.
Do you make your work in batches?
I do. So for example, I have like 15 cups just like this sitting under plastic over there waiting to get finished off, like I'm doing with this one. So I'll work on one type of object at one time, make a batch, and then move on to another type of object. My style of working, since I'm using molds and slabs cut to specific sizes, making one object at a time is kind of ridiculous because then I'm kind of wasting time when I can make the same cut sized slabs and same pressed objects all at once, and then just do the steps of the process in unison. Like make all of the top ring, make all of the bottom ring, make the feet, make the handles, over and over. So that's how all the bottom sections are going to get added on. How much time do I have left? I don't know.
Where are we at? It doesn't say.
Oh, well,
How about you just 5 to 10 more minutes?
5 to 10. So I'll add this little wedge on, and then I'll move on to the handle just to show you. So this cup will end up having 8 wedges arranged evenly on the bottom. I don't have enough time for that. To finish off these, well, I guess they're mugs, I have a handle that is made in a press mold, just like everything else. And I would press it the exact same way that I would press this mold, but with the major difference that since it's in 2 parts, one would be cut flat like the previous mold, the foot mold, and then one would be raised up a little bit at a sort of like a peak. Then I would score it with water and join it together and press it. Once it comes out, there's a lot of cleanup that has to happen because it's 2 parts. There's a sort of weird like layer of clay going up as a spine. So to make sure that it attaches well, got to sort of round out the spot where it joins. And to do that, I'm just sort of pinching and pushing the clay to make it a little rounder. So now I'm going to arrange this handle so that it is in line with what will be one of the wedges on the bottom. And just like the foot, I'm just marking where it's going to be so I know where to score. Handle. And add slip.
Mike, where can people find more information about you and your work?
I have a website, and it's michaelcervpottery.com, and then I have an Instagram, which is michaelcervpottery. Yeah. Just like the foot, I'm making sure that this is really pressed down, otherwise it could crack off. Minus some of the bottom bits. This is a pretty much done mug. So now I would finish it up by sponging everything, make sure it's nice and smooth. And go ahead and fire it.
Thanks guys so much. Up next is going to be Zoe. We'll see you in a couple minutes. Bye.